Captain Samantha Powell stared at the giant screen on the bridge of the USS Maverick. Her head was spinning a little from the 3 glasses of champagne she had drunk in the last hour. The crew had thrown her a surprise birthday party, and things had gotten a bit wild. That was when the aliens decided to call. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from an unknown vessel," said communications specialist Heather Morris. Her words were slightly slurred. She had been enjoying the party, too. "Put it on screen," Powell ordered, trying to stand up straight. The image of a tall, blue-skinned alien appeared. It had 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Gold armor covered its body and symbols of rank decorated its shoulders. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Zixtal of the Vraxian Empire," the alien said in a deep voice. "We have observed your planet and have decided it will make a fine addition to our territory." Powell blinked, not sure if she had heard correctly. "Excuse me?" "Your resources will be claimed for the glory of Vrax. Your people will serve our empire." The alien's 4 eyes narrowed. "Unless you wish to challenge us." Lieutenant Jack Harris stumbled onto the bridge, holding a glass of whiskey. It was his 5th drink of the night. "What did I miss?" he whispered loudly. Powell waved at him to be quiet. "Challenge you how?" she asked the alien. "Our ways are honorable. We offer single-ship combat, your finest warriors against ours. If you win, we will leave your solar system. If we win, your planet belongs to us." The alien commander smiled, showing all his teeth. "You have 1 hour to present your championship." The screen went black. "Did an alien just declare war on us?" asked Lieutenant Harris, taking another sip of his whiskey. Powell rubbed her forehead. "Someone get me Earth Command right now." 10 minutes later, Admiral Frank Russo's face appeared on the screen. He looked worried. "Captain Powell, we've confirmed the alien vessel. It's huge, heavily armed, and there are no other military ships close enough to engage. The Maverick is literally the only ship we've got within range. Sir, with all due respect, we're in the middle of a birthday party. Most of the crew has been drinking for hours." The Admiral sighed. "I understand, Captain, but we have no choice. You're it. Earth's fate depends on the Maverick." "So our orders are what, exactly?" Powell asked, already knowing the answer. "Engage the enemy. Try not to vomit on the controls." The Admiral almost smiled. "Good luck, Captain. Earth Command out." Powell looked around the bridge. Engineer Benjamin Kelly was leaning against a wall, humming to himself. Tactical Officer Gregory Washington was trying to look serious but kept giggling for no reason. Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, their best pilot, was spinning slowly in her chair with a silly grin on her face. "Attention, everyone," Powell said loudly. "Party's over. We're going to war." "War?" repeated Security Chief Daniel Rodriguez, who had just walked in carrying a plate of cake. "Against who?" "Aliens," Powell said. "Very serious, well-trained alien. Warriors who want to take over Earth." The bridge went quiet. "But we're drunk," said Chief Kelly, stating the obvious. "Yes, we are," Powell agreed. "And we have about 45 minutes to pull ourselves together before we have to fight the most important battle in human history." Lieutenant Martinez stopped spinning in her chair. "I can fly," she said. "I'm a little tipsy, but I can fly anything." "I can still shoot," added Officer Washington. "Actually, I'm better at darts after a few beers. Maybe it's the same with space guns?" Powell took a deep breath. "Morris, send a message to all crew members. Battle stations in 30 minutes. Kelly, check the engines and weapons. Rodriguez, get security teams ready. Martinez, plot an intercept course with the alien vessel. Harris, find every bottle of water on this ship and start passing it out." "What about coffee?" Harris asked. "That too," Powell said. "And anyone with hangover pills should share them now." As the crew scrambled to prepare, Powell sat in her captain's chair and tried to think clearly. The situation was ridiculous. The Vraxians had probably spent years planning this invasion. Their soldiers had trained their entire lives for war. And here was humanity's defense. A ship full of birthday party guests who could barely walk straight. 30 minutes later, the crew had gathered themselves as best they could. Some were still obviously drunk. but most had reached that strange state between intoxication and the beginning of a hangover, alert enough to function, but relaxed enough to not overthink things. "Captain, the Vraxian ship is hailing us." Morris. "Reported. On screen," Powell ordered. High Commander Zixtal appeared again. "Have you prepared your championship, humans?" Powell stood up, hoping she looked more sober than she felt. "The USS Maverick accepts your challenge." The alien commander studied her for a moment. "Your eyes are unfocused, Captain. Are you injured?" "Nope," Powell said. "Just ready to fight." "Very well, we will move to the designated area near your moon. There we will engage in honorable combat. Prepare yourselves." The screen went dark again. "Martinez, follow that ship," Powell ordered. "Kelly, what's our weapons status?" "Everything's working," the engineer replied. "I think the targeting system is a bit glitchy, but Washington says he can compensate." Washington nodded enthusiastically. "I've recalibrated the targeting computer to account for my, current state of perception." "What does that mean?" Powell asked. "It means I programmed it to aim where I think I'm aiming, not where I'm actually aiming," Washington explained. "Trust me, it'll work." As the Maverick followed the alien ship toward the moon, Powell gathered her senior officers. "Look, I know. This isn't ideal," she said, "but we're Earth's only hope right now. These aliens expect us to follow some kind of space battle rulebook. They expect strategy, discipline, and perfect execution. None of which we can provide right now," Harris pointed out. "Exactly," Powell said with a smile. "And that might be our greatest advantage. They won't be able to predict what we're going to do because even we don't know what we're going to do." The huge Vraxian warship came into view on their screens. It was at least 3 times the size of the Maverick, covered in weapons and moving with perfect precision. "Captain, they're hailing us again," Morris said. "Everyone look serious," Powell ordered before accepting the call. The alien commander's face appeared. "Captain Powell, prepare for combat. May the strongest warriors prevail." Powell nodded. "We're ready." As the screen went blank, Martinez looked back at her captain. "Orders?" Powell took a deep breath. "Fly like you've never flown before, Martinez. Everyone else, hold on to something. We're about to show these aliens what humans can do, even at our worst." The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's champions were a crew of tipsy, half-drunk space sailors who were making up their battle plan as they went along. The Vraxian warship fired its engines and moved into position. The massive vessel gleamed in the sunlight, its weapons ports open and ready. On board the USS Maverick, Captain Powell watched the alien ship through the main view screen. "That's a big ship," Lieutenant Harris said, finally starting to sober up. Powell nodded. "Morris, are you recording everything? Earth will want a full account of this battle." "Yes, Captain," Communications Specialist Morris replied. She had splashed cold water on her face, but her eyes were still slightly unfocused. "All systems are recording." Powell stood up from her chair and looked at her unlikely squad of fighters. They were not what anyone would call Earth's finest warriors at the moment, but they were all she had. "Listen up, everyone," she said. "We need a battle plan. Any ideas?" Flight Lieutenant Olivia Martinez raised her hand. "I've been studying their ship. It's big and powerful, but probably not very fast. The Maverick can outmaneuver them." "Good," Powell said. "What about weapons, Washington?" Tactical Officer Gregory Washington had been drinking beer all night but had switched to energy drinks for the last 20 minutes. He was now very awake, but still not completely sober. "Their ship has standard shield configurations," he said, speaking faster than normal. "But I notice they always keep their shields at equal strength all around the ship. If we can make them think we're attacking from one direction, we might be able to hit them from another." "That could work," Powell agreed. "What about our defenses, Kelly?" Chief Engineer Benjamin Kelly had been the drunkest of them all at the party, but the crisis had shocked him into a strange kind of clarity. "I've rerouted power to strengthen our forward shields," he said, "and I've got a crazy idea. We still have about 20 bottles of vodka from the party, and I think I can modify our fuel mixture to create a sort of booze-powered engine boost." Powell stared at him. "Is that safe?" Kelly shrugged. "Probably not. but it might give us a short burst of speed they won't expect. Do it, Powell decided. We need every advantage we can get. Security Chief Daniel Rodriguez, who had spent years as a bouncer before joining the Space Service, spoke up next. In a bar fight, the guy who throws the first punch usually has the advantage. I say we hit them before they hit us. Powell thought for a moment. That goes against standard protocol, but this isn't a standard situation. Morris, hail the Vraxian ship. The alien commander's face appeared on screen. Up close, his blue skin had a metallic quality to it, and his four eyes blinked in different patterns. Captain Powell, Zixtal said, we will begin combat in exactly 5 minutes. We will count down from... Yeah, about that, Powell interrupted. We humans have our own tradition before battle. We call it cutting to the chase. She signaled to Washington, who fired a warning shot across the Vraxian ship's bow. The alien commander's four eyes widened in surprise. You dare to fire before the official start? This is not honorable. Welcome to fighting humans, Powell said with a smile. Martinez, evasive maneuvers, now. Lieutenant Martinez, whose piloting skills were legendary even when she was sober, pushed the Maverick into a steep dive. The smaller human ship accelerated toward the moon's surface with the Vraxian warship in pursuit. They're firing, Harris called out as the first enemy shot streaked past them. Hang on, Martinez warned as she pulled the ship into a tight turn that made the gravity compensator struggle to keep up. Several crew members groaned as they felt the G-forces. Still feeling sick from the party? Powell asked Washington as he held his stomach. No, I'm good, he insisted, then fired the Maverick's main weapons at the pursuing alien ship. The Vraxian vessel easily blocked the shots with its shields, but the attack forced it to slow down slightly. Kelly, how's that booze-powered boost coming? Powell asked through the ship's communication system. Almost ready, Captain, Kelly replied from engineering. But I should warn you, this is going to be rough, and it might make the ship smell like a bar for a few days. That's the least of our concerns right now, Powell said as another blast from the Vraxian ship rocked the Maverick. On the bridge, Morris was listening carefully to the Vraxian communications. Captain, I'm picking up their internal chatter, she said excitedly. They're confused by our flight pattern. They think we're executing some kind of advanced evasive maneuver. Powell laughed. If they only knew. Martinez is just trying to fly straight while still tipsy. Martinez looked offended. I'll have you know, Captain, this is exactly how I'm planning to fly. The alcohol just makes me less afraid to try the really crazy moves. As if to prove her point, she suddenly spun the ship in a corkscrew pattern that no sober pilot would attempt. The move successfully dodged 3 direct hits from the Vraxian weapons. Kelly, we need that boost now, Powell ordered as the Vraxian ship closed in on them. Ready, Captain. But everyone should hold on to something. Powell gripped the arms of her chair. Do it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Maverick lurched forward with such force that several people fell to the floor. The ship shot away from the Vraxian vessel at an incredible speed, trailing a strange blue-white flame from its engines. What did you do? Powell asked when she could speak again. I mixed the vodka with our reactor coolant, Kelly explained through the comm. It created a temporary supercharged plasma effect. We've got about 30 seconds of this speed before we burn out the mixture. Martinez, make those seconds count, Powell ordered. The pilot grinned and steered the Maverick in a wide arc that brought them up and behind the Vraxian warship. Perfect position, Washington said, his fingers flying over the weapons controls. They've still got their strongest shields forward where they think we're going to be. Their rear shields are weaker. Fire everything we've got, Powell commanded. The Maverick's weapons blazed, striking the Vraxian ship's rear shields. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the alien vessel shuddered as its rear shields flickered. We've damaged their shield generators, Washington shouted in triumph. On the view screen, they could see the Vraxian ship turning to face them, but its movements were slower now, more cautious. They're hailing us, Morris reported. The alien commander appeared on screen again. His perfect posture was gone and his four eyes darted around nervously. What manner of combat is this, he demanded. Your attack pattern makes no sense. Your weapons configuration violates standard space combat protocols. Captain Powell simply smiled. That's because we're making this up as we go, Commander. Ready for round 2? As the Vraxian ship prepared to fire again, Powell looked at her crew. They were disheveled, still not completely sober, and flying by the seats of their pants. But somehow they had survived the first round of battle, and even managed to damage the enemy ship. All right, team, Powell said as the enemy prepared to attack again. Let's show them what drunk humans can really do. The Vraxian warship fired a series of precise energy blasts at the Maverick. The smaller human ship shook as several shots hit their shields. Shields down to 60%, Washington reported, his fingers dancing across his console despite his lingering buzz. Martinez swerved the ship in a wild pattern that made several crew members grab onto their stations for support. 2 more energy blasts from the alien ship narrowly missed them. Kelly, status report on the engines, Powell called over the comm system. The vodka boost is completely used up, the engineer replied. But I've been thinking, we still have some tequila and rum from the party. Powell raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting we make the ship drunk again? Well, not exactly the same way, Kelly explained. But I could create a similar effect with a different alcohol mixture. It would give us a different kind of boost. Maybe not as fast, but more unpredictable. Do it, Powell ordered. Morris, any more insights from their communications? Heather Morris, who had been listening intently to the Vraxian transmissions, nodded. They keep referring to us as chaotic and undisciplined. Their commander is getting frustrated because he can't predict our next move. That's because even we don't know our next move, Lieutenant Harris commented, earning a few nervous laughs from the crew. The Vraxian ship was turning to face them again, its massive weapons ports glowing as they prepared to fire. Martinez, get us out of their firing line, Powell commanded. I've got something better, the pilot replied with a grin. She pushed the ship into a spin while simultaneously diving toward the moon's surface. The maneuver looked completely reckless, but somehow she managed to keep the ship under control. What do you call that move? Harris asked, gripping his chair tightly. The drunken corkscrew, Martinez replied. Invented it just now. On the Vraxian ship, General Kavex was growing increasingly agitated. He had never encountered a fighting style like this in his 200 years of military service. Their movements make no sense, he told his second-in-command. They violate all principles of strategic combat. Perhaps they are using some advanced form of randomized attack patterns, his officer suggested. Kavex shook his head. No military would train their soldiers to fly so chaotically. It's almost as if they're... Sir? The officer prompted when the general paused. It's almost as if they're impaired in some way, Kavex finished. But what kind of species would send impaired warriors to battle? Back on the Maverick, Powell was developing a new strategy. Washington, what if we fire our weapons in an irregular pattern instead of standard formations? The tactical officer thought for a moment. You mean like randomly? Exactly, Powell said. They're expecting us to follow some kind of logical attack sequence. Let's do the opposite. Washington grinned. I can do random, I'm still drunk enough for that. He began firing the ship's weapons in completely irregular bursts. Sometimes rapid fire, sometimes with unexpected pauses, sometimes targeting obvious points on the Vraxian ship, other times aiming at seemingly unimportant areas. The strange attack pattern confused the Vraxian defense systems, which were programmed to predict standard military tactics. Several shots broke through their shields, causing minor damage to the alien vessel's outer hull. It's working, Harris exclaimed. In engineering, Kelly had finished his new concoction. Captain, the rum-tequila mixture is ready, but I should warn you, this one might make the ship dance. Dance? Powell repeated. It's hard to explain. Just be prepared for some unusual movements. Powell sighed. At this point, nothing would surprise me. Activate your cocktail drive, Kelly. The engineer connected his mixture to the ship's secondary propulsion system. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the Maverick began to vibrate. What's happening? Powell asked as the vibration increased. The mixture is creating a pulsing effect in the engines, Kelly explained. Instead of a continuous thrust, were getting rhythmic bursts of power. The result was that the Maverick began to move in a jerky, pulsating pattern that made it even harder for the Vraxian targeting systems to lock onto them. "This is," Martinez began, struggling to control the ship's new movement pattern. "Impossible to predict," Washington finished for her. "Their targeting computers must be going crazy." Morris was listening to the Vraxian communications again. "Captain, they think we're deploying some kind of advanced shield technology. They're calling it a temporal distortion field." Powell couldn't help but laugh. If they only knew it was just tequila and rum. The Vraxian ship fired again, but the shots went wide as the Maverick pulsed and jerked through space. Washington took advantage of their confusion to target the same damaged section of their shields. This time his shots broke through completely, damaging one of the alien vessel's weapon ports. "Direct hit," he shouted, pumping his fist in the air. On the Vraxian ship, alarms were blaring. General Kovacs was shouting orders to his crew, but for the first time in his military career, he felt uncertain. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this kind of battle. "Sir, should we deploy our elite boarding party?" his second-in-command suggested. "Perhaps in close combat we can overcome whatever strange advantages they possess." Kovacs considered. The Vraxians were physically stronger than humans and excelled in hand-to-hand combat. "Prepare the boarding shuttles," he ordered. "We will engage these humans directly." On the Maverick, Morris intercepted the new orders. "Captain, they're preparing to board us. 3 shuttles are launching from their main hangar." Powell frowned. This was a new challenge. Her crew might be managing surprisingly well in space combat, but hand-to-hand fighting with alien warriors was a different matter entirely. "Rodriguez," she called to her security chief. "What's your take on this? Can we repel boarders in our current state?" Security Chief Daniel Rodriguez had been quietly sipping water for the past 20 minutes, trying to sober up. He stood up straighter, thinking about his years as a bar bouncer. "Captain, I've broken up more bar fights than I can count. Trust me when I say that a slightly drunk human can be more dangerous in a fight than a sober one. We're less afraid, we feel, less pain, and we're more unpredictable." "That's not exactly standard security protocol," Harris pointed out. Rodriguez shrugged. "Neither is anything else we're doing. I say we give these aliens a proper Earth welcome." Powell nodded. "Assemble your security teams. Arm everyone. But Rodriguez, try to make sure nobody's too drunk to tell an alien from a fellow crew member." "All ready. On it, Captain," Rodriguez replied. "I've got coffee brewing in all security stations. It won't sober us up completely, but it might help us aim better." As the Vraxian boarding shuttles approached, Powell looked around at her bridge crew. They were disheveled, still partly intoxicated and completely unorthodox in their methods, yet somehow, they were holding their own against an enemy that should have easily defeated them. "All hands, prepare to repel boarders," she announced over the ship-wide comm. "And everyone, remember, they may have trained their entire lives for this, but we have something they don't." "What's that, Captain?" asked a crew member. Powell smiled. "The absolute lack of fear that comes from being just drunk enough to think this is a good idea." 3 Vraxian boarding shuttles attached themselves to different parts of the USS Maverick. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the ship's corridors as the aliens began to force their way inside. "They're breaking through in sections 4, 7, and 12, Harris reported from his station. Captain Powell nodded. "Rodriguez, are your teams in position?" "Yes, Captain," the security chief replied over the comm. "I've got teams at all entry points. Everyone's armed and, well, most of them are almost sober." Powell turned to Morris. "Keep monitoring their communications. I want to know what they're saying to each other once they get inside." The first breach happened in Section 4 near the cargo bay. 5 tall Vraxian warriors in gleaming armor stepped through the hole they had cut in the Maverick's hull. Each carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and an energy rifle. They were met by Rodriguez and 4 security officers. The humans had taken positions behind cargo containers, their weapons ready. "Remember," Rodriguez told his team quietly, "these guys are used to fighting by the book. We're not going to do that." The lead Vraxian warrior spotted the humans and raised his weapon. "Surrender now," and you will be treated with honor as prisoners of war, he announced. Rodriguez responded by throwing an empty tequila bottle at the alien's head. It bounced off the warrior's helmet with a loud clang, startling him. "Did you just throw a bottle at me?" the Vraxian asked, genuinely confused. "Welcome to Earth fighting," Rodriguez replied, then gave the signal to attack. The security team popped up from different positions, firing their weapons in an uncoordinated but effective barrage. 2 Vraxians went down immediately, caught off guard by the humans' unconventional approach. In Section 7, near engineering, another group of Vraxians encountered Chief Engineer Kelly and his team. Kelly had been working frantically to keep the ship's systems running and hadn't had time to fully sober up. When the aliens broke through, Kelly was standing in the middle of the engine room holding a large wrench in one hand and a coffee mug in the other. "Halt, humans," the Vraxian leader commanded. Kelly looked at the alien warriors, then at his engineering team, who were all watching him for leadership. He took a sip from his mug, which contained coffee liberally mixed with leftover whiskey, and made a quick decision. "Computer," he called out. "Activate emergency protocol Disco Inferno." Nothing in the Vraxian combat training had prepared them for what happened next. The lights in engineering began to flash in multiple colors, and loud Earth music started blasting from the speakers. Kelly had created this protocol for the birthday party earlier, but now it served a different purpose. The sudden sensory overload disoriented the Vraxians, whose 4 eyes and sensitive hearing made them especially vulnerable to the flashing lights and pounding bass. While they were confused, Kelly and his engineers attacked with tools, fire extinguishers, and anything else they could grab. On the bridge, Powell was monitoring the situation when the third group of Vraxians broke through in Section 12. "Not far from their location. They're heading for the bridge," Harris warned. "Martinez, you have the con," Powell said, standing up. "Washington, Harris with me. Let's greet our guests." The 3 officers took position in the corridor leading to the bridge, armed with standard weapons. They could hear the heavy footsteps of the Vraxian warriors approaching. "Any advice for fighting aliens?" Harris asked nervously. "Hit them before they hit you," Powell replied, "and don't overthink it." When the Vraxians rounded the corner, Powell didn't wait for them to speak. She fired immediately, catching the lead warrior in the shoulder. Washington and Harris followed her example, creating a chaotic firefight in the narrow corridor. One of the Vraxians pushed forward despite the human resistance. He was larger than the others, with additional decorations on his armor marking him as a high-ranking officer. "I am Sub-Commander Vexnar," he announced. "Surrender your ship." Powell responded by throwing her empty weapon at his face and diving, to tackle him at the knees. It was not a move taught in any military academy, but it worked. The surprised alien toppled over, crashing into his companions behind him. Throughout the ship, similar scenes were playing out. The Vraxians, trained in disciplined, coordinated combat, were struggling to adapt to the humans' unpredictable, almost random fighting style. Morris continued to monitor the alien communications from the bridge. "Captain," she reported over Powell's personal comm device. "They're completely confused. They keep asking each other what combat doctrine we're using. One of them just said we fight like... I think the closest translation is crazed wildlife." In the cargo bay, Rodriguez had managed to capture 2 Vraxian warriors. He was questioning them while his team secured the area. "Why do you fight this way?" one of the aliens asked, genuinely puzzled. "There is no honor in such chaos." Rodriguez laughed. "Buddy, where I come from, winning is the honor. And right now, we're winning." Back on the Vraxian main ship, General Kavex was growing increasingly concerned as reports came in from his boarding parties. None of them were making significant progress, and several warriors had already been captured or injured. "This is impossible," he muttered to his second-in-command. "They're outnumbered and outmatched. How are they prevailing?" "Sir," his officer replied hesitantly, "there's something unusual in the medical scans of the humans. Their blood contains traces of chemicals, ethanol and various other compounds. Every human we've scanned shows the same pattern." Kavex's 4 eyes widened. "They've drugged themselves before battle? Is this some kind of berserker combat enhancement?" On the Maverick, Powell had successfully repelled the Vraxians from the bridge area. She returned to her captain's chair, slightly bruised but feeling oddly energized. "Status report," she ordered. "Engineering is secure," Kelly reported. "We captured 3 aliens. They really don't like loud music." "Cargo bay is secure too," added Rodriguez. 2 prisoners and the rest retreated back to their shuttle. Powell turned to Morris. "Open a channel to the Vraxian ship." When General Kvex's face appeared on screen, Powell noticed he looked distinctly less confident than before. "General," she said, "your boarding parties have failed. Would you like to try something else? Or should we continue this battle until one of us can't fight anymore?" The Vraxian general studied her carefully. "Captain Powell, I must ask, what combat enhancement have you given your crew? Our scans detect strange chemicals in your bloodstream." Powell was confused for a moment, then realized what he meant. She couldn't help but laugh. "General, that's not a combat enhancement. We were celebrating my birthday when you arrived. What you're detecting is alcohol. My crew is drunk, or at least they were when this fight started." All 4 of Kvex's eyes blinked in perfect unison. "You sent intoxicated warriors to battle, our elite forces?" "We didn't send them," Powell corrected. "We were the only ship available. It was just bad timing on your part." For perhaps the first time in his long military career, General Kvex was speechless. General Kvex stared at Captain Powell through the viewscreen. The Vraxian commander had fought in hundreds of battles across 3 star systems. He had faced the most elite warriors of a dozen different species, but he had never encountered anything like this. "Let me understand correctly," Kvex said slowly. "Your crew was not specially selected for this combat? You were not deploying some secret Earth battle tactic?" "Nope," Powell replied. "We were just having a party when you showed up. Bad timing on your part, good luck on ours." The general's 4 eyes blinked in different patterns, a sign of deep confusion in Vraxians. "And this alcohol? It is not a combat enhancement drug?" Powell shook her head. "It's a recreational substance, something we drink to relax and have fun. It actually impairs judgment and coordination. Yet your impaired crew has managed to repel our boarding parties and damage our ship," Kvex observed. Lieutenant Harris, who was standing behind Powell, leaned forward. "That's because you guys fight by the book. We're just making it up as we go." Kvex turned away from the screen for a moment to consult with his officers. When he faced the humans again, he seemed to have reached a decision. "Captain Powell, I request a temporary ceasefire to retrieve my boarding parties and reassess our approach." Powell nodded. "Granted. You have 1 hour to collect your people and decide what you want to do next." As the communication ended, the bridge crew looked at each other in surprise. "Did we just win?" Martinez asked from her pilot's seat. "Not yet," Powell cautioned. "But we've confused them, which is a good start." While the Vraxians collected their boarding parties, Powell gathered her senior officers in the conference room. Most of them were now completely sober, though exhausted from the combination of the birthday party and unexpected combat. "We've bought ourselves some time," Powell said, "but we're still outgunned and outnumbered. If they decide to continue fighting, we'll need a new strategy." "I've been analyzing their ship design," Kelly said. "They have one potential weakness. Their main power core is located near the center of the ship, but there's an auxiliary power junction that's less protected. If we could hit it with a concentrated burst, we might be able to disable their primary weapons temporarily." "That would give us an advantage," Washington agreed. "But how do we get a clear shot? Their shields will be at maximum strength now that they know we're a threat." Morris, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "I have an idea. I've been listening to their communications, and I think I understand how their language works. What if I send them a message that makes no sense? Something so confusing that they'll be distracted trying to figure out what we mean. Psychological warfare," Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "I like it." Powell considered the idea. "What kind of message did you have in mind?" Morris smiled. "Well, I'm still a little buzzed, so I was thinking something completely random, like cooking. Recipes mixed with poetry and maybe some mathematical equations. Would that work? Harris asked skeptically. The Vraxians are very logical, Morris explained. Their language is precise and structured. Something illogical might genuinely confuse them because they'll assume it must have some deeper meaning. Powell nodded. Do it. Kelly, prepare to target that auxiliary power junction the moment their shields fluctuate. Martinez, plot a course that will give Washington the best firing angle. As the hour of ceasefire neared its end, the Maverick was ready. Morris transmitted her message. A bizarre mixture of Earth cocktail recipes, fragments of Shakespeare, and complex calculus problems, all presented as if it were an important military communication. The effect on the Vraxians was immediate. Their ship's movement became hesitant and their shields fluctuated as power was diverted to their communication systems to analyze the strange message. They're trying to decode it, Morris reported, listening to their internal chatter. They think it's some kind of encrypted battle plan. Now, Powell ordered. Washington fired a concentrated burst at the exact spot Kelly had identified. The shot passed through the weakened shields and struck the auxiliary power junction. The Vraxian ship shuddered, and several of its weapon ports went dark. Direct hit, Washington exclaimed. Their main weapons are offline. Before the Vraxians could recover, Powell opened a channel to their ship. General Kvex, your weapons are disabled and we have a clear shot at your engine core. I suggest you reconsider your invasion plans. The general's face appeared on screen. For a proud warrior of his stature, this was an unprecedented situation. How? He asked simply. How has a single ship of intoxicated humans defeated our elite forces? Powell thought for a moment before answering. I think it's because you expected us to follow rules of engagement, to fight the way you fight. But humans are adaptable. We use what we have, even if what we have is a crew that's had too much to drink at a birthday party. Kvex was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he made a gesture that appeared to be the Vraxian equivalent of a bow. Captain Powell, the Vraxian Empire acknowledges your victory. We will leave your solar system as agreed. But I must ask one thing. What's that? Powell asked. This substance, alcohol, that makes humans fight so unpredictably. Is it a natural part of your physiology or something you created? Powell couldn't help but smile. It's something we discovered thousands of years ago. Different plants and fruits can be fermented to produce it. Why do you ask? Because, Kvex said gravely, I must ensure that the Vraxian High Command adds a new clause to our warfare protocols. Never engage humans who have been consuming alcohol. After the Vraxian ship departed, Powell sat in her ready room, writing her report to Earth Command. How exactly was she supposed to explain that her drunk crew had just saved the planet? Admiral Russo's face appeared on her screen. Captain Powell, we've received the Vraxian withdrawal confirmation. Congratulations on your victory. Can I ask what strategy you employed? Powell hesitated. Sir, I'm not sure you'd believe me if I told you. Try me, Captain. Well, sir, the truth is that we were all drunk from my birthday party when they attacked. Our impaired state actually confused their tactical systems because we weren't following any predictable patterns. For a moment, the Admiral was silent. Then, to Powell's surprise, he burst out laughing. So you're telling me that Earth's first major victory against an alien invasion force was achieved by a crew of drunk officers at a birthday party? Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened. Admiral Russo shook his head, still chuckling. Powell, I'm not sure whether to promote you or order you all into counseling. But one thing's for sure. This is going to make one hell of a story. As the Admiral's image disappeared, Powell looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vraxians were reporting back to their empire about the strange, unpredictable humans who fought better drunk than sober. Well, she said to herself, raising a glass of water and a toast, here's to unorthodox tactics. The USS Maverick set course for Earth, its crew already wondering how this bizarre incident would be recorded in the history books. Would future generations believe that humanity's first interstellar battle was won by a ship full of birthday party guests who were too drunk to follow the rules of engagement? Probably not. But it was true all the same.